Welcome everyone. Today we are going to discuss Module 15, SQL Injection of the CES course. So this module is more about understanding the concepts, various types, methodologies and tools with respect to SQL injections. This concept we have been discussing in our previous sessions also. We had one example also yesterday in one of the labs. Okay, and today, that's why this is only theory, and this does not have a accompanying lab for this. So it is more about understanding the types and various ways and the tools which we can use to perform SQL injections. Okay, with little bit of overview. So the topics that we are going to cover are overview, then attacks using the SQL injection, the methodology, tools, and defense or countermeasures. So we like as part of countermeasures also we have been discussing web application firewalls, then detection tools, and how we can involve SQL injection as part of pen testing. So SQL injection also is written sometimes as capital SQL and small I. Okay. What happens in this is that an attacker executes a malicious SQL statement, and also sometimes this is called as malicious payload. So why we use as an attacker, why SQL injection is used? So what's the purpose of it? So the purpose is to bypass some kind of an authentication, okay, and either retrieve some kind of contents from the database, or using DML commands to modify the contents inside the database, or we want to let's say there are websites who have content which is stored in database backend, then we can deface them by manipulating the content. And sometimes, in one of the previous examples also, when we had on SQL map, so there was an OS shell that we gained by doing SQL injection attack, right? So that is also one of the purpose. So as part of data which is vulnerable, which can be vulnerable, because databases are used to store a lot of information. So this is the type of information that is vulnerable. Okay. One is account information, information that is related to users, their passwords, their access rights, okay, and various other flags that developers would like to keep as per the account. Then there are times when you would have seen that personally identifiable information is also stored in databases. Like I remember that as far as data points are concerned over a person on social media websites, there are times when more than 5,000 data points are stored in a database regarding a person, to understand their behavior, to understand their likes, dislikes, with additionally social security numbers or PAN numbers, Aadhaar numbers, anything which makes person identifiable. So there are still laws against misuse of such information, which are in progress in various countries, and there are various movements also going on. So especially in case of healthcare and financial information. Okay. Now, there are times when companies internally, there are times when the information is not available on public web servers, but internally in corporate networks, people also store some information with respect to the trades, the businesses that happen within various departments, as well as if there are trading communications that are happening with respect to other clients, which a company might have. Then, with respect to customers, also people store information in the databases. Okay, and other sensitive data is also there. There can be documents or images or other blob files. And with respect to intellectual property also, there's a lot of information that is stored in databases. So the all these types of information which is stored in DB, and they are all in a structured manner, they are stored. And various tables can also be combined to pull out results from the database backend. And this kind of data and information is vulnerable. So let's now discuss about attacks that can happen using SQL injection. So let's discuss the categories of these attacks. So you would see that there are actually three. One is called first order attack, second is the second order attack, and then there are lateral injections. So if a payload is created, okay, and it is directly inserted in the database, and uh, and immediately executed also, then it is called first order attack. But with respect to second order attacks, payload is inserted in the database, but it executes based on some kind of a trigger in future. Okay. And it might happen that because you have inserted some payload with the help of one application, and the attack is actually meant for another application which connects to the database server. So because the server might have multiple databases connected to different applications. So if that happens, so that kind of an attack is called second order attack. And then another type is lateral injection attack, wherein functions like toChar, these functions are made part of the injected payload. And whenever a text is, whenever the data is converted into text, and that function is called. So that also, if calling that function results in some kind of a, results into some kind of an error or information disclosure or dump of the data, then that is called lateral injection. Now let's discuss some of the types. So there are the last example that we were discussing, wherein we actually injected the parameters into a conditional statement. Like say we injected in this part of the SQL. So which so anything that comes after where in a SQL query is a conditional statement. Okay. So if you inject some parameters in a conditional statement, then that becomes one type of SQL attack. The goal of doing this kind of an attack is so that uh, do something so that this condition becomes true. And as in when the condition becomes true, this particular SQL query, like select star from users, will become valid. And if a valid SQL query is executed on a database with the help of a connection, then it will bring out the results. Okay. Or even if it is not bringing out the results to the UI, then some part of the code which depends upon this evaluation of the condition will get executed. Okay. Then we have illegal or logically incorrect queries. Okay. So these kind of queries are created. Uh, just a second. Yeah. These kind of queries are created to gain information from the database, also called information disclosure. So intent is normally to store it for future use, so that in future, with the help as conjunction with the another attack, you are able to inject this illegal query. Okay. And normally, how would you be able to find the or validate whether a particular injected payload has worked or not? You will actually see the error page that provides the database information. Okay. So it's like if the proper error handling hasn't been done by the developer who's using. So normally it is advised for the developers to use, rather than using raw queries in the source code, they need to use some kind of a intermediate layer in between. Okay. So that layer is in form of some kind of a library which takes care of all input validations and parsing the queries for errors and reporting proper, sending proper error codes and all those things. So the term which is there for this kind of an intermediate layer or a middleware kind of a thing, which is called object relational mappers. Okay, so please have a look at this. Okay, so it likes in effect a virtual object database. It creates a object virtual database that can be used within the programming language. Okay, so all these uh, frameworks you might have heard, which with the help of which people develop web applications, such as you might have heard of quite a famous web application framework called Django, for like a Python based framework. So you would see that whenever people are writing anything related to the database interaction, so or the developers, they actually follow this kind of a syntax. Okay, so they define the type of the field and any other constraints that are there. And if one particular model in this particular example is one table. Okay, so this is a field name, and this is some kind of a class which is helping developers to abstractively interact with the database. So they don't have to memorize all the SQL syntax that we discussed. So why? Because there is a layer in between which directly interacts with the SQL server, and that makes it possible for developers to write these statements carefully. Okay. So if there is some kind of a problem in these ORMs, then the result might be shown in a different way, but it will be way different than writing raw SQL queries in the file, that the examples that we saw yesterday. Okay. Then attackers can form union queries also. Okay, so it's like if there is a query which is appended with this kind of a statement like union select, and then you are giving some kind of a code, so it returns the data from a secondary table. Say I could combine the select star from users, and then I could union. Okay, there is a example here. When you say select the date from results where title is trees, and then you add a union query along with it, so that it fetches the username from accounts where the name is Bob. Okay, so this kind of a union of multiple queries is called union query attack. Okay, then you have stored procedures. So what stored procedure is? The way in a programming language we have functions, and references to those functions is stored in the memory. Similarly, databases also have large logics that are written, and they are encapsulated in the form of functions. They can be called if there are some set of statements that need to be called again and again by a calling program, then these kind of statements are stored in procedures. They call it procedures, and these stored procedures are executed typically with the help of some kind of a trigger that happens inside the database. Okay, and normally procedures are written by database administrators, or who are like core database developers, right? And it can be combined by using a colon at the end of the query. Okay, sorry, semicolon. Some other methods that you would see, like end of the line comment. Okay, then there are time based methods. Then like in a conditional statement, we exploited a condition for being true, so that are called as Boolean exploitation. And sometimes if we add double dashes to comment out rest of the part in the malicious code so that it becomes not usable for our valid query as an attacker. Then we can use add these double dashes. So it disables any further part of useful code. Okay. And then there are inference SQLi attacks. So if you have like multiple branches with wait for statements, so you by when you use wait for statements, it actually waits for some kind of a value in some other table, and based on that condition, the rest part of the query is executed. Okay. So these kind of inference SQL attacks can determine what is successful by response time. So there are times when you have actually written a query and maybe it is part of a procedure and you want to store it for later use. And then you write some logic so that you get a confirmation whether the payload was able to execute or not. Okay. So you need some of the other always some kind of a result, and even as part of pen testing to showcase in your reports, you have to always validate and give some kind of an identification to the in your reports that particular attack was successful. Okay. Now how what happens in as part of steps in an attack. Like, the first step is to always gather the information, then you launch simple attacks, and then if simple attacks are not working out or some of them are working out, then you launch a advanced attack. Okay. So first is to gather the information. So what activities can be part of gathering the information? You need to probe application for database connections and insert string data where numeric data is requested. Okay. It serves like two purposes. Like first is that it might actually give you underlying information on as to whether numeric fields are also stored as text fields or not. If they are, then you can use like the concept that we discussed above, like creating a function and storing it in the text field. Okay. Like the two-char example that we just looked at above. And if we are not able to store a text information in a numeric field in a database, then ultimately it will show you some kind of a result error. So that like it solves like two purposes. Then you have list SQL based fields that also should be you should be able to like find out. So you can add like various options as part of the list. Okay. Then there are like attempt to use union operators. You need to gather this information to understand whether what kind of a simple attack you can launch, or you can launch an advanced attack. Then there are times when your SQL formatted, not formatted, but some inputs will actually result in some generating some errors. So you need to really try in the application by giving some input that is probably not sanitized in the backend. Okay. So make use of all gathered information and then plan the next attack. So first is error messages. Okay. Sorry. Second is error messages. Now, while finding out information from error messages, you can determine the database engine, that with what kind of a database engine is used. And then you can also determine which functions are available. And while looking at the error messages, you need to focus on this. And then you can determine what commands are acceptable by the database. Also, the data types, okay, and the data structure that is being followed while creating was followed while creating the tables. Then some of the simple attacks, you can take the examples like we discussed above. Like you can create union statements, and you can bypass the logins. Then you can do stored procedure injections, and then if required, you can actually do a blind SQL injection. So what happens in case of blind SQL injections is that you perform the payload will get executed, but you will not immediately see the result. Okay, so in case of that, you have to devise some or the other mechanism to see the outcome of the payload execution. So that is blind SQL injection. Then we have advanced attacks. So one is data enumeration. So advanced attacks are the ones that result in some kind of enumeration of the data. It may be related to accounts, it may be related to customer information, it may be related to IP, like intellectual property, or other information. Okay. Then an advanced attack also can lead you to gain access to the operating system on which the database server is installed. Okay. Then if you are able to perform advanced attacks, you can create accounts, and you can also gather the passwords and then crack them offline, and also you can access the file system. Now, like it is always advised that, like to the developers also, that they should always avoid reading and writing from the file system. And reading and writing should only happen directly to the databases. And the database should be isolated completely from the underlying operating system. Why? Because if an attacker has the access to the file system, then there is lot there the attack surface would increase, and there are a lot of other possibilities, and operating system related attacks can also be carried out. Okay, lateral attacks. Then let's discuss some of the injection tools. Okay, so you can use SQL injection tools such as SQL map. So it is an automated tool. It inserts injection flaws, and also it supports multiple databases. So in one of the examples, I remember we had, like, it by default it will search whether the database is MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server or Oracle. It by itself it searches, and you can customize it also. I'll just show that, and it is available as a command line tool. So in Kali, if you see, the version that I have is 1.4.11, a stable version, and you can have a look at sqlmap.org to read about this tool. Okay. So as far as the help message is concerned, you can actually, with attack and double H option, you can see advanced help message and exit the program. Then you have a verbose mode, and the default level is 1, but you can make it verbose up to the level 6. Okay. So targets are given in the form of this kind of a URL. So let's say there is a page, walnut.php, and there is a field which is probably injectable with different values, or maybe this kind of a request which goes as parameter and a value to a web application. Okay. So based on this logic, web application would process or use the value of ID variable, okay, in the program, and then it might be replacing it with inside a raw SQL query, right? So you can make use of that. Let me see if this example is like the actual one or not. Okay. Okay. This is actually not found. I don't know which site it is. So I think it's just given as an example. Okay. So, but also if you want the process or Google Doc results as the target URLs, then you can specify or create a Google Doc and specify that as small tag G. The request You can say how you would like to connect to the target URL. And if you're passing some kind of a data through the post request, then you can specify it with double tag data. And maybe if you were able to find you probably you are say guessing or predicting some kind of a session ID, or you're able to generate, or you probably you stole some kind of a cookie, then you can pass that information also. Okay. And if you want this in case of using random agents, it's like whenever you connect as a client to a web application, so the client side is all considered as a user agent. Okay. And whenever you connect, this particular value goes as part of HTTP headers, user agent header. So if you don't want the web server or the application to detect that you are connecting through a regular and not changing user agent, then you can specify this option as random agent. Okay. And if you are making use of any proxy, then you can specify that with this option, double tag proxy. It also has an option of using the Tor anonymity network, and you can see if the Tor is working properly or not, if it can be used along with SQL map or not. With this option, you can check it. Then there are other options for injection, for detection, and the techniques. Okay. So default technique is BEUSTQ. For enumeration, it has various options. If you it regarding banner, regarding current user, regarding the current database, if there are some hashes, the tables. So all of these, like during the enumeration lecture itself, you know that these are the values, or this is the information that I want to bring after doing an injection attack. Then you can specify these options. Okay. So you can also try this tag A or double tag all to retrieve everything by default. But normally, whenever you plan an attack, there is not a lot of time. So you should carefully plan as to which particular option or which particular, uh, you know, enumeration option you should use, because generally this can be kept an eye on at the target end. Maybe someone has an intrusion detection mechanism, and or some kind of a firewall which is monitoring these kind of requests. Okay. So that you need to take care. For gaining the operating system access, you can use options such as OS shell or OS spawn. Okay. And you can see that OS spawn is can give you the OOB shell, like meterpreter or VNC, right? Now you can actually do some general working parameters are like you don't ask for user inputs again and again, and use the default behavior. You can instruct the tool to run in a batch mode. Okay. And also, if there are times when a particular session might become invalid because of some defense mechanism at the target end, and you might require sometimes to flush the session, so you can use flush session option. Okay. So while what is it like, all these options need to be tried by you. If one particular method is not working, then you should try with these options rather than leaving it in between. Okay. So this was a SQL map. So similar to SQL map is there is a tool called SQL Ninja. So this particular tool is actually designed specifically to gain remote access to the database. And with the help of you can also integrate this tool with Metasploit, the framework, pen testing framework that we have been discussing, right? Then there is a tool called Safe3 SQL Injector. It is also an automated tool, and it is quite good in bringing results with respect to HTTP and HTTPS sites both. Okay. and it can also support multiple authentication methods. So please have a look in that on that. Then there are some additional tools that you can read about. One is called SQL Pat, one is SQL Get, another one is BSQL Hacker, then Dark Jumper, Pangolin, Havage, SQL Power Injector, SQL Brute, and Marathon. Okay. So just as part of your toolkit, pen testing toolkit for your regular use and for solving some of the challenges, try to gain proficiency in one or two tools maximum. Okay, but for general knowledge, please read about these tools and they'll help. And if there is a specific feature which is available with one particular tool, then you can use that tool. And there might be some accessibility. If they're available in the lab, please gain access to the lab and then try these out. Okay, now we had a look at various attack methodologies, various attack types. Then we had a look at the tools that can be used. Now let us discuss some countermeasures, how we can defend ourselves against these SQL injections. So first and foremost, and most important thing is to have general policies. So policies for error messages, for authentication, for accounts, and towards file system. Okay, so always have like try. It needs to be communicated to the developers and also people who configure the databases. Okay, it is always best to turn off the error messages. Okay, and usually error messages are thrown from the applications in debug mode. So if there is some the other configuration which is required in the database to turn off, then you should do that. And if like for let's say for logging purpose of logging or for purpose of other maybe compliance requirement, you need to probably log some values. Then instead of using the error codes of the database system that is there, you can create customized messages. Okay, and these intermediate layers that are there, such as object relational mappers, they help you in customizing these messages. Okay, so developers should make use of that rather than posting direct SQL errors from the database. Then with regards to authentication, always filter the data input and look for invalid data before running the SQL commands, and all the access attempts towards the data authentication, like username and password. If there are people, there are times when you see in the logs that there are various attempts with different passwords or different usernames. Maybe someone is trying to brute force. So all of that information needs to be monitored as part of authentication system. Okay. Then with respect to accounts, always limit the database account access, and the all the operations that are run should run as non-privileged users. Like we do not have modification rights, and any access which is happening to the operating system should be avoided. Any unnecessary access. Okay. If it is possible to avoid completely any access to the operating system, then it should be done. But normally it is not possible. So any unnecessary, the ones that are lying without any use, if some access is there in the operating system from the database server, then it should be disabled. And all of these things, there are tools to test these policies automatically. Okay, and if developers are following the standard practice of a framework that has been laid out while developing, then these things are automatically taken care of. But from your end also, once you should run your tests. Okay, to ensure that actually nothing is left out. Then with respect to handling the SQL data, verify that all the data for size and type is there and available. Reject comments. Okay, binary data and escape characters. Like like you can use double tag to comment a particular line. And if whether there are times when you are actually posting a binary data and it is not being sanitized, people don't actually look for it and they skip it. Okay. And then there are some escape characters like backslash is there. Whether someone is actually sanitizing the inputs before passing those variable values for the SQL query. People usually forget these things. Okay, then for regarding handling this SQL data, you need to reject these. Now, property test all string variable. Properly test all the string variables. Okay, and then don't use application data to create transact SQL commands. Okay, it's like we have the habit, right? We will fetch some information from the application and we'll directly make it as part of the database query. Okay, that should not happen. Okay, there should be some mapping in between, which relates the information from the application to the database. So for securing web applications, with respect to now, web applications are the ones that will be using the database always. So there can be desktop-based applications also and separate custom clients that are using some kind of a database over the network. Okay, that's a different scenario. But in case like database, when it is used with web applications, you have to actually strictly check the settings in the configuration files. Okay, web servers also have configuration files. Web applications also have configuration files, and these configuration files should be secure, and the settings should be stored in them in a secured manner. Okay, any if the application has access to specific accounts, then try to limit that particular access. Okay, and yes, always perform regular penetration testing. Always ensure access to sensitive data. uh, like ensure that the access is limited to sensitive data. And passwords, rather than storing them in clear text, they should be stored in SHA-2. Well, this is just one example of hash, SHA-256, but other hashes in response to other hashes can also be stored with in the database. Now, generally there is a limitation on the length of a field, right? So like make necessary configuration, or while describing the data structure you need to like take care like what length of the string can be stored in a particular field in the database. So with respect to one particular hashing algorithm, you might require different length of the field. Yeah, this point is regarding the ORMs. Okay, so always not necessarily these abstraction layers are called ORMs, but there should be some kind of an abstraction layer which help you in for or the application code to interact with the database. Using that abstraction layer actually secures a web application, and any parameters that you are going to use, ensure that they are type safe. Okay. So now these were the policies. Okay, and there was some. This can be implemented either in behavior, or these things can be enforced with the help of policies, or they can also be part of security training when it is given to the employees. Now, with respect to tools, you can also make use of tools to detect whether whether a particular SQL injection attack has happened or not. Okay, before they can happen, you can detect them or defend. So it's like there's a tool called dot defend. It supports multiple platforms, and additionally it helps in finding vulnerabilities in web applications, and also it works as a web application firewall. So this is a good tool. Okay, Then we have been discussing very famous IDS called Snort. This particular tool can also be configured to display SQL injection attempts, and it can help you in detecting these SQL injections in real time. Okay, but while installing in Snort, ensure that the firewall and the Snort are on the same subnet. Okay. Then there is a project called SQLIX project. I think it's Perl based. Okay, and probably an old one. I'm not sure. I haven't checked it that whether it is still functional or not. So please check that. And but it has good features like it can scan for SQL injection vectors. Then it can identify backend databases. So you can run against the own infrastructure. Okay, this looks more like a attack tool, but you can probably counter as a countermeasure. You can run this tool against own infrastructure to find out various attack vectors. Okay, it helps you in discovering injection vulnerabilities, but just check whether it's still functional or not. Okay. Then there are some additional tools like SQL Block Monitor. Then we discussed this Acunetics web vulnerability in the previous session also, like as an example. Then WSSA, SQL Dictionary, okay, and then IBM Security App Scan. Then to test the vulnerabilities in web applications from HP, there is HP Web Inspect. Then NStalker, okay, NGS Squirrel, and Green SQL. Okay, these are some just additional tools. Okay, now we know the countermeasures, and we know various attack methods. We know various tools that we can use. Okay. Now, as part of pen testing, how you would make use of SQL injection. So first one is to identify, then inject, and then review. Just 3 steps, right? So as part of identification, you can do a lot of enumeration. Okay. As I told you the points. So plan like which order of attack you want to plan, like second order, lateral injection, or first order attack after gaining information, like as one of the attack steps, like whether you want to gather the information from normal basics of footprinting. Okay, either, or you can use or probe the application for error messages, and you can then probably plan and inject using whatever comes to your like whatever says result is there after identification, whatever is the most suitable. Maybe you get an information with the help of which you will be able to launch an advanced attack. Okay, so just to reiterate that as part of simple attacks, you can try union statements, you can try to bypass the logins, you can try stored procedure injections, or you can try blind SQL injection. And as part of advanced attacks, you can try to enumerate the data, okay, or you can execute the operating system commands, or you can create user accounts and gather the password hashes. Generally, they are stored as hashes. Like I don't know if I've ever seen a password which is stored in plain text. Generally, it is that. And also, as part of advanced attack, you can try accessing the file system. So, as part of inject step in the pen testing, you can try all of these, and obviously use these tools that we have discussed and have proficiency in at least one or two tools. Then once you have now with respect to SQL injections, you might not be always able to see the result of an attack. Okay, always. So in that case, please keep proper documentation so that they can be reviewed by the direct reports. Okay. or your supervisors. Like they can be reviewed properly, or probably by the compliance or the database administrators, as to how to fill those security holes. Okay, so we've reached to the end of this session.